Joining me now is former candidate for President of the United States, a man of faith, one of the best medical and political minds this country has to offer. I'd like to welcome Dr. Ben Carson to the program. Dr. Carson, how are you, good sir?
I'm doing well. So good to be with you.
Well, you know, I've been watching your career from afar, and it's really a bucket list item for me to have you on the show because you really are a deep man of faith and you're a deep thinker. So let's just jump right in. You were with former President Trump this week, and he said, faith took on new meaning on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania. God saved me for a purpose. Being around Donald Trump right now, post-assassination attempts, Doctor, do you feel something different in him as a man?
Absolutely. I think he's more contemplative, and he's very grateful to be alive. You know, I've been telling him for the last decade that God has chosen him for a special purpose. I believe he really believes that now. And what he's doing for the country. He's not doing it for himself. You know, he was already one of the most famous people in the world, one of the richest people in the world. He didn't need to do this. And it has cost him severely. He's almost lost his life even. But he is fourscore dedicated to helping to bring this country back.
You know, Dr. Carson, I was watching an interview with you, and you went way back to the 28th of November, 1972. And I'd like to just give my audience today in Arizona a little bit of context about you as a man, not just as a politician or a doctor or a former presidential candidate, but you as a man of faith. Can you just briefly tell my audience what happened on the 28th of November, 1972?
Yeah, Candy, my wife, and I were doing some recruiting for Yale. We were both Yale students in Detroit, and we had to get the rental car back to New Haven. We weren't even going together at that time, but we had sort of discovered that we liked each other. And going at 90 miles an hour on Interstate 80, right outside of Youngstown, Ohio, we both had fallen asleep. I was driving, was awakened by the vibration of the car as it was going off the road, heading toward a ravine. And I grabbed the wheel and turned it. And instead of the car just flipping over and going down the ravine, it started spinning like a spinning top. And it stopped in the correct direction on the side of the road. So I pulled off just as the 18-wheeler was coming through. But we were, of course, fully awake at that point. And we said, you know, the Lord just saved our lives for a reason. He's got something for us to do.
And the reason, Dr. Ben Carson, I asked you to tell that story is twofold. Number one, what you just mentioned about Donald Trump and having a different sense of purpose. And really, I speak to people every day that are around the president, and they say that there's this different aura, this different vibe, for the lack of a better term, around him when he's off mic, when he's off camera. You also had, in a very different way, a near-death experience back there in 1972. When you face something like that in life, it truly does put things into perspective. When you look at Donald Trump, do you feel like what he's experienced over the last couple of months with these assassination attempts, that it will change the way he governs?
I think he's going to govern extremely well like he did the first time, but he won't have the same degree of violent opposition that he's had before because he can't run again. And so the left will probably slow down their attacks on him. When he's not being attacked, he is a very nice person, very cordial, very caring individual. And I think he'll be able to direct his attention to getting things done. And the left will find, if they're not attacking him all the time, that he's actually a good person to work with. Because the real goal is to strengthen the position of America and make life better for the American people. And if the left can agree with that, there are multiple ways to work together.
I think that that's a very interesting take, because a lot of people, including myself, say, oh my gosh, he's just going to be banging his head against the wall if he gets elected. The left is going to have all kinds of hurdles for him to jump over. Nothing's ever going to get done because they just hate Trump, 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 orange man bad. You're saying if he gets elected again, he can't obviously run for re-election, and maybe we have a little bit of this kumbaya moment where red and blue is starting to work together for the American people. Is that possible?
I think they'll find that to be the case if they're willing to accept it. If their hatred of Trump is beyond rational processing, then maybe not. But they'll have to ask themselves, do we hate Trump more than we love our children and our grandchildren and those coming after us? And really, when you stop and think about it, and I've had this experience, when you ask the never Trumpers and the Trump haters, why do they hate him so much? They usually can't come up with a very good answer. What has he done to you that's so bad? They usually can't come up with a very good answer for that.
Dr. Ben Carson, you're a very level-headed mind, a very rational person, even in the way that you speak and the way that you represent yourself. Very calm, cool, intelligent, and collected. If Kamala Harris is elected president, are you confident this time around? And I know that Donald Trump or J.D. Vance, if they were on the show today, would have a different answer, but are you confident this time around that there will in fact be a peaceful transition of power?
Well, there's no transition of power because she's already in power. So I don't think that would be an issue. I don't believe that Trump and his supporters are going to rise up and cause a great deal of difficulty. I think that would be much more likely in the other direction.
Well, I mean, I understand your point. She's in power. She's the vice president, but this would be her winning the presidency. So there would be some sort of a transition. And a lot of people, including myself, are a little bit, quite frankly, whether Trump gets elected, to your point, or Kamala gets elected, we just want to see democracy work, keep all of the fraud and stuff to a minimum, and just a smooth transition of power in January. That's all I'm saying here, Doctor.
Yeah, and that would be very nice. And that's what Benjamin Franklin was talking about when he came out of Constitution Hall in 1787, and he was asked, "Sir, what do we have here, monarchy or republic?" And he said, "Republic, if you can keep it." And we've kept it for 248 years. But our founders realized, after studying every government system that ever existed, that the tendency of all governments is the same: grow, infiltrate, and dominate. And that's what we're fighting right now. Are we going to be a country that is of, by, and for the people, or of, by, and for the government? And it's a big issue. Most Americans don't understand it. They've been manipulated. A lot of people on the left side have been manipulated by the media, who's done a horrendous job. The reason that they were protected by the Constitution, the press, is because they're supposed to disseminate unbiased information to the people so that the people can be informed and make informed decisions. But when they put not only their thumb on the scale, but their foot on the scale, they distort the whole system as it was designed. And that's why it's not working the way it's supposed to.
Speaking with Dr. Ben Carson. Dr. Carson, as you know, you're speaking to the state of Arizona right now, and abortion is on the ballot. That prop is going to be on the ballot, and there's going to be a lot of females that come out to vote that are going to only come out to vote just for that one issue, a one-issue voter. And we know that those votes trend blue. They will trend towards Kamala Harris and Ruben Gallego for the U.S. Senate race. We know that, right, Doctor? So my question is this, and I'm about to take a lot of heat here, but it's not often that I get to talk to a man of faith and a man that has been a leader throughout his career. So I'm going to go ahead and fire away here, Dr. Ben Carson. And this is not an I gotcha at all, I mean this sincerely. Can a God-fearing woman, a God-fearing man, a man or a woman of faith, vote Democrat in good conscience?
Well, if if they have been deceived and they don't understand the process of birth and life and the development of a human being, 23 chromosomes, man, 23 chromosomes, woman, and the gamete. When they come together, you have a zygote with 46 chromosomes, a complete new human being, not part of the mother, not part of the father, begins to develop at lightning speed immediately, millions of neurons every day, later billions of neurons. That's why when a baby is born, it sleeps 20 to 22 hours a day, because the brain is still developing at a rapid pace. That continues until your mid-20s, which is why it is so strange that people want people with undeveloped brains to make decisions about who they are in terms of their gender when they're confused, they're suggestible, and then they're curious. But my point being that you have an individual rapidly developing and is in the safest place he can be, which is in the mother's womb. Does that give the mother the right to kill it? We've taken what would be a sacred relationship between a mother and her child, and we've made the child into the enemy of the mother, who's causing her problems, and her problems can be solved by killing it. That's a culture of death. Our very founding document, the Declaration of Independence, says our rights come from our Creator, among them our life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We need to get back to understanding who we are as a people.
And I appreciate the detailed answer, sir, and I appreciate it also, obviously, being a medical doctor from the medical standpoint. And the reason I ask it, because, when the guys are sitting in the bar, the ladies are having a cocktail, this issue comes up in Arizona because abortion's on the ballot, and a lot of Democrats, they're going to be voting a certain way. But as you know, Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals are often people of faith. That's what they share. They share Jesus. They share God. So it's a really hard thing for somebody like me to wrap my head around. Does it matter who you're voting for concerning your religion?
Well, we just have to recognize that people will see things differently. And as far as pro-life is concerned, whether you believe it begins at conception or at 6 weeks when there's a heartbeat, or at 15 weeks when there's sensation, you're still under the pro-life umbrella and moving toward a society that honors life. That should be the goal. And conversion is better than coercion.
Dr. Ben Carson, I appreciate your talents. I appreciate your kindness and your honesty today, speaking very freely. We do freedom of speech on this show, sir. So real quick before you go, Governor Tim Walz is going to be in town in Arizona this week. Donald Trump is going to be in Arizona this week. A lot happening in the state of Arizona. It's obviously a swing state. It's a very important state for the Harris campaign and the Trump campaign. Do you feel that Donald Trump, in your heart of hearts, is going to win this election, and within, I don't know, by November 7th at least, we'll have an answer who the next president is?
I absolutely believe that. You have to recognize that things are going to be different than the last election in 2020. We have over 200,000 volunteers to do poll watching and to man the polls, and trained lawyers who have the phone numbers of the legal authorities. We're not going to allow a lot of misguided actions to occur this time. It's going to make a big difference.
Well, let's hope that everything's above board and it's a free and fair election. Dr. Ben Carson, keep doing what you do, sir. As I said, a voice of reason in this country, and that's what we need more of. Thank you for being on the show. We'll talk to you down the road.
Thank you. Take care.
My name is Billy Harfosh, broadcasting from beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona. Star Worldwide Networks. What'd you think of that? That's former presidential candidate, Dr. Ben Carson. My gosh, his voice is so calming and soothing, but he definitely stands up for what he believes in concerning his faith and his political views, and we appreciate that always on the show. We're a matter of days away from Election Day. We'll have much more coverage, explosive interviews coming your way. Please like, subscribe, comment. We'll be back with more explosive interviews.